My father had that tattoo. The little girl's voice was soft, but it cut through the room like a blade. 5 Navy SEALs turned at the same time, and for the first time in years, none of them could move. The hospital corridor felt too bright for a day that heavy. White walls, clean floors, the sharp scent of antiseptic hanging in the air. Machines hummed in steady rhythm from behind closed doors. Families sat in stiff chairs, holding paper cups of cold coffee, staring at nothing, and in the middle of it all stood 5 broad-shouldered men in dark jackets, their posture straight, their faces still. They had faced storms, deserts, gunfire, and nights that felt longer than life itself. But they were not ready for the small girl standing at the end of the hall. She could not have been more than 8. Her braids were tied with faded blue beads. She wore sneakers that had been washed too many times. In her small hands, she held a folded piece of paper. Her eyes were locked on the tattoo peeking from beneath one of the men's sleeves. My father had that tattoo. The hallway went quiet, even. The hum of machines seemed far away. Petty Officer Marcus Hale felt the words land in his chest like a weight he could not lift. Because the tattoo she was staring at was not common. It was a trident wrapped in an eagle's wing, and beneath it, barely visible, were 5 small stars. 5 stars, 5 brothers, 1 fallen. Marcus Hull had worn that ink for 13 years. He got it after the worst night of his life. The memory still lived in his bones. Salt air, burning fuel, the metallic smell of fear mixed with ocean spray, the heavy heat of a distant fire lighting up black water. They had been young then, strong, loud with confidence. They believed nothing could break them. 5 men who had trained together until their hands bled, who laughed through pain, who carried each other through exhaustion, who promised, in the half-serious way young warriors do, that they would never leave a brother behind. That night changed everything. An explosion. A flash so bright it turned night into day, the sound so deep it shook the inside of their chests, and when the smoke cleared, one of them did not rise. David Carter. He had been the quiet one, the one who wrote letters home every week, the one who kept a photo of his newborn daughter folded inside a plastic bag in his vest, the one who said, more than once, if anything happens to me, make sure she knows I loved her. Marcus still remembered the smell of smoke in David's hair as he carried him. The weight that felt heavier than any gear he had ever worn. They made a promise that night. 5 stars for 5 brothers, no matter where life took them, no matter what it cost. Now, years later, the promise stood in a hospital hallway, staring back at them through the eyes of a child. Marcus swallowed slowly. The girl stepped closer, her small fingers trembling as she unfolded the paper in her hands. It was a picture. Old edges. A man in uniform smiling wide. On his forearm, the same tattoo. Only his stars were 4, not 5. He was planning to add the 5th, the other. SEALs felt it at the same time. Time folded in on itself. The girl's voice was calm. To calm, he told me his brothers would always look for me if I needed them. Her mother stood behind her, eyes red, jaw tight. A woman who had learned to be strong because life left, had no other choice. The tension in the hallway shifted. A nurse paused mid-step. A man sitting across the room looked up from his phone. Silence stretched long and thin. Marcus noticed the hospital, bracelet around the girl's wrist. She was not just visiting, she was a patient. Her name was Umara, and she was waiting for a heart transplant. The doctors had said time was not on her side. The insurance forms were complicated. The bills were piling up. The system moved slow, too slow. Her mother had worked double shifts, sold her car, borrowed from family, still not enough. And through it all, Umara carried her father's picture like a shield. He had passed when she was 4. An accident. Sudden. No warning. She grew up hearing stories of courage, loyalty, and 5 men who would never forget each other. But stories do not pay medical bills. Stories do not move paperwork. Stories do. do not speed up waiting lists. The hallway felt smaller now. Marcus looked at his brothers in their eyes. He saw the same thing: memory, promise, responsibility, but also the quiet weight of rules. Military men understood systems, protocol, lines that could not be crossed. They had all moved into civilian life, different careers, different paths. They were not in charge here. They were just visitors, and yet, a promise is not a small thing. The hospital administrator arrived minutes later, a neat suit, polished shoes, polite smile that did not reach the eyes. There were policies, he explained carefully. There were procedures. Waiting lists could not be influenced by emotion. Fairness had to be preserved. Marcus nodded slowly. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He had learned long ago that strength does not shout, it stands. The administrator's words felt clean and cold. Amara's mother listened with silent frustration. Bystanders watched. No one stepped in. The 5 men stood in a line, still, unmoving. The administrator cleared his throat. I understand your connection, but there is nothing more to discuss. Marcus finally spoke. We are not here to break. Rules' voice was steady. Low. We are here to keep a promise. The words did not sound loud, but they carried weight. That evening, something quiet began to move. No speeches, no anger, just action. Marcus made a call, then another, then 5 more. Men and women who had served. People who understood the meaning of 5 stars under a trident. By morning, the story had traveled farther than the hospital walls. Veterans groups reached out. Legal advisors offered help to navigate the paperwork. Community leaders organized. Support a foundation that funded medical care for children of fallen service. Members stepped forward. The administrators' inbox filled not with threats, with offers, support, donations, requests for meetings. Within days, the hospital board agreed to review Amara's case under a special assistance program that had been sitting unused for years. No rules were broken, but doors opened, because sometimes systems move when enough quiet hands push together. Amara watched it all with wide eyes. She did not fully understand paperwork or policies, but she understood one thing. They came. Her father's brothers came. Marcus visited. Every evening he brought her books about oceans and ships. One night she asked him why. He never seemed angry. He thought for a moment. Anger burns fast, he said softly. Honor lasts longer. She nodded, as if she understood more than most adults. Another evening, it's one of the other SEALs, Thomas Reed, bent down beside her bed and said something that would later be written across thousands of social media posts. A real promise does not expire with time. The nurses began to look at the 5 men differently, not as visitors, but as guardians. Weeks passed, tests were run, calls were made. Then one early morning, as sunlight slipped through the hospital blinds, the news arrived. A match. A donor heart had become available. The hallway filled again, but this time, tension felt different. Hope, fear, relief tangled together. Amara was wheeled toward surgery, her small hand gripping Marcus's finger until the last possible second. He bent down close. Your father was brave, he told her. So are you. She smiled. Then the doors closed. Hours stretched long. The 5 men stood together, shoulders almost touching. They did not pace. They did not complain. They simply waited. Waiting was something they knew well. Finally, the surgeon stepped out. The operation was a success. Amara would need time to heal, but her heart was strong. For a moment, no one moved. Then her mother sank into a chair, tears falling freely. Marcus closed his eyes. Just for a second. 5 stars. Still 5. When Amara woke up, the room felt different. Lighter, she touched her chest gently, as if amazed by the steady rhythm inside. Marcus rolled up his sleeve. The tattoo caught the light. She smiled. You kept your promise. He shook his head slowly. No, he said. Your father did? Weeks later, a hospital held a small ceremony in the courtyard. Not for publicity, but for gratitude. Doctors, nurses, staff, veterans, families. Amara stood on steady feet, a thin scar hidden beneath her shirt. Her braids were tied. With new blue beads, the 5 men stood behind her. The administrator approached the microphone, his voice softer than before. He spoke about policies and compassion, about how systems must serve people, not the other way around. Then Amara stepped forward. She looked at the crowd, and at the 5 stars inked into Marcus's arm. My dad said, heroes do not need to be loud. The courtyard fell silent. She continued, they just need to show up. The crowd rose slowly, not in wild cheers, but in quiet, standing respect. That day something changed beyond hospital walls. A fund was created in David Carter's name to help other children of service members facing medical crises. Veterans across the country donated stories, spread but. The 5 men returned to their normal lives, because for them, it was never about attention. It was about a promise, and 5 small stars that would never fade. There are battles most people never see. Promises made in the dark, sacrifices carried in silence, but sometimes, all it takes is a small voice saying, my father had that tattoo to remind the world that honor is not a story from the past, it is a living thing. It breathes in quiet. Hallways it stands when no one else does, and it shows up.